Mr. Vance Lee. Welcome, everyone. I'm super excited for our live training today. How's it going, Vance?
Doing great. Yeah, doing amazing, man. Thank you again for having me.
Excellent. So welcome to everybody that is here today live. Today's training is about how to crush your competition and eliminate risk. And then Vance is going to show you this unique 2022 pre-order launch strategy so that you don't require to buy inventory before we get started. So great that everyone's joining us live today. And we had over 100 people that registered. And I reviewed all of your feedback. I passed it to Vance as well. It was very insightful. We saw that a lot of the top challenges people deal with are launches are too costly right now. Launches are very risky right now. And Vance is going to show you how to, ways to eliminate the risk with today's training. So quick introduction. Before we do that, if you like to just type your name and where you're joining us from before we get started, that would be great. All right. So I'd like to introduce Vance. Vance Lee is an e-com entrepreneur with 13 years background in brand growth and marketing strategist. I know he comes actually from an agency background. So he had a marketing corporate career before coming into e-commerce, and he'll share more about that. Since starting Amazon FBA in 2015, he's really mastered crowdfunding and pre-order launch strategy to launch products and to grow brands. He's raised over $7 million in successful launches and broke records with two of his launches, both #1 most funded in their niches and ranking in the top 1% of crowdfunding projects of all time. This is over Kickstarter and Indiegogo. So he's originally from Canada. Now he's a full-time nomad, and maybe he'll share a little bit about where he's at right now. And this is going to be about 60 minutes. So I encourage you guys to stay until the end. We'll have a special bonus offer for you guys. All right. So welcome, Vance. Can you quickly share why should people who's this training for today? Can you share that?
Yeah, well, thank you for anyone tuning in. And this is really exciting for me to talk about because this is an area that I've been super passionate about over the past five years. And this is really for anyone, depending on your stage of business, whether you're just starting out and this is going to be your first product launch, or if you've launched 10 products and you're looking to scale your brand and really kind of amp up your ability to get cash flow and to be able to scale and build an audience that gets you really excited to support your future product launches. This is really for anyone who is looking to develop a brand and build a sustainable business in e-commerce.
Excellent. And if people have questions, would you like them to just type them in the chat? And do you want to get to them at the end, or what would
that
you
would
prefer,
be perfect.
Vance?
Yeah, let's just throw them in there, and then we'll address them all at the end.
Excellent. So any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll get to them. And I know that Vance has reviewed all the questions that everyone submitted. So he actually built that into the presentation. So this is going to be a very action-filled presentation. Let's go ahead and get into this. So without further ado, Vance, would you like to share your screen? Let's get into this.
Let's do it. How's that? We see it?
Looks great.
Alrighty. So today, as Gary mentioned, we're going to be talking about how to make use of a pre-order launch strategy. So if you're new to what that means, we're going to go into a lot of detail about pre-orders and what that looks like. But the idea here is that you're going to be able to launch with a prototype only, and that's what pre-orders are all about. So you don't need to invest in inventory first. And at the end of the day, our goal here is really to build a sustainable brand, a sustainable business that's diversified, that's going to last into the future, and it's not going to be at the mercy of just really relying on one source of revenue or a single platform. That's really our goal with being able to build a strong brand. So at the end of the day, that's really the objective. And but you're going to learn more about what this looks like in terms of being able to see some of the other benefits. So let's dive right into it. So my name is Vance. Gary had a really awesome intro for me already. But what else I can add is I started FBA in about 2015. And Since then, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've learned a lot. And that's what eventually led me to discovering pre-orders. I'm still an Amazon seller. I sell products on Amazon, but now I've diversified using things like pre-order launches, and I sell on Shopify. I've built up a business based on wholesale and distribution, where I'm selling products to distributors in a certain country, and they're selling to giftware stores and coffee stores in those countries. And so it's a lot has happened since I've launched in 2015. So a few goals that we have for today. The first one is to start identifying the biggest challenges for sellers in this year, 2022. So what are people facing? How can we address those with pre-orders? The second one is to understand how pre-orders is going to address that, is like I just mentioned. And we're going to look at really how to do this without requiring inventory risk, because that's really one of the biggest things that's stopping sellers right now from launching new products, but also stopping sellers and holding sellers back from scaling their products if they're going to be setting up themselves for success once they launch. And the third one is we're going to walk through our approach called the Launch Accelerator Blueprint on how to do this, and at the same time how to not only have a successful pre-order launch, but also at the same time building a community of people, building a list of people that you're going to be having to support your product launch and your brand. So that's what we're going to cover today. And I'm going to drop off and knock off some of these FAQs right off the bat, because we saw some of these questions and some of the questions are whether or not this is something that replaces Amazon or Shopify. And the answer is no. This is a platform for launch only. And eventually you're going to be able to launch to other platforms of your choice, including Amazon, Shopify, or wherever else you find makes sense for your product and your strategy. And that answers the second question. And then is it necessary to have 100% unique product, or something that's revolutionary or very, very different? And does this only work for certain product categories? The simple answer is no. And we're going to talk a bit about how we're going to differentiate as well, because this is often a question that comes up about how to create a product that is going to stand out, that people get really excited about. So we're going to go into a lot of detail about that today. Cool. So who is this for? We already mentioned this. Gary asked this at the beginning. And really, at the end of the day, if you're a beginner seller, an advanced seller, doesn't really matter. If your goal is to build a strong brand, to minimize your risk and to improve your cash flow and to scale faster, this is going to be for you. So like Gary mentioned, stay until the end with your questions. We're going to answer all the questions that you have and then some. And also, we're going to have an interesting opportunity that you'll find really valuable if you're looking to launch your next product sometime in the near future. So let's dive right in. Challenges facing sellers today in 2022, and a lot of these are come from conversations. I mean, obviously, I'm in the industry as well, so I know what's what kind of challenges are there. I spoke to Gary about this recently. The most recent survey that I sent out to all of you before opting into the webinar, a lot of you have identified your biggest challenges as well, and so based on that, we've kind of identified to take some action from this using pre-order. So let's dive right into those. So we're going to walk through these one by one and kind of identify what that looks like, and in terms of what the impact is on our ability to execute launches and to be able to grow our brands. So the first one is too much competition. This is the number one voted one from and this is obviously not something that's in your mind. This is a real thing. We're having a lot more people enter as people are seeing opportunities to build e-commerce businesses. The other thing is not only just more overall competitors, but lots of bigger players with big budgets. So all these really large companies that are coming in that are able to invest a lot in launches, that are able to grow really quickly because they have the funding to back it up. in 2020, we had over 200,000 new sellers, and that's an increase of 45% from the previous year in terms of new sellers. And in 2021, it was the numbers, the most recent numbers that I saw were about over 660,000 new sellers by the end of the year. So that was a really, really high number of incoming new sellers. And in Shopify, 5 million new stores opened on Shopify. So a lot of people are seeing opportunities. This doesn't mean that we can't be successful. This doesn't mean that it's it's not doable to be successful in e-commerce. This just means that a lot of people are finding these opportunities as well. And for us, it's important for us to understand how to given this landscape to react accordingly.
Vance, can I just quickly jump in? Your voice is breaking up from time to time. I'm hearing that, and then some of the others viewers are hearing that. I don't know. Do you want to try to turn off the video, like on your side, to maximize the bandwidth? Or
sure, let's give that a shot.
Okay, let's see if that's better. And thanks to Mohammed for bringing that up, because I was hearing
Thank you,
that
guys.
as well.
Yeah,
okay,
sorry about that.
Yeah, just keep going.
Weird going on the internet. Gotcha. Okay, perfect. So continuing on, cost of launch. This is the second highest voted one from our survey that we sent earlier, and this is essentially just this is subjective based on individual sellers, but of course, what we're finding is that people are, because of the increase in competition, launching in certain categories, especially high competition categories. We're finding that it's what is contributing to this? Well, we know that PPC costs and ad costs are rising, and that's not something that needs to be debated or argued. But of course, the initial inventory costs, especially when it comes to these higher competitive categories, when you want to do well and you want to make sure that you launch successfully against some of these bigger players, is becoming really, really costly. So the initial inventory investment is one of the the third one is risk of launching, and this is the third highest voted one from the survey. And really, this has to do with a lot of things that are happening within the landscape overall, not just the e-commerce landscape, but also just the overall economy. Factors as before, the rising PPC costs, higher inventory investment because of competition, but we're seeing things like higher production costs from manufacturing in China or other countries. And because of all these things that are happening, there's a lot of uncertainty within the economy. And this is, by the time you source a product and have an idea and do the research and you launch, and that includes things like decreased spending, or maybe just less interest in the product. There's a lot of things that can kind of increase the level of risk of a potential launch. Gary, how are you doing in terms of audio right now?
It's still a little bit cutting in and out, like sporadic. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you can do, but otherwise, I think we'll have to just do our best with what it is.
Okay, cool. I'm not sure if there's anything else we can do at this point. I'm connected to the best internet that I have at the moment.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, let me know if there's anything that's very clearly I'm cut off or something. I can definitely kind of just go back quickly. Cool. And number 4. So this one, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in detail, because cash flow is one of those things that affects definitely new sellers. But a lot of new sellers believe that if we become successful, more profitable, these cash flow issues go away. And that's definitely not the case. And even if you have a successful launch and the product is going well, there's a lot of potential for you to run out of cash or to run out of inventory. And what this does is it stops you from being able to scale successfully. So what's happening in the landscape that's contributing to this is, of course, the inventory costs we talked about, rising production costs, but things like supply chain issues, where it's taking a lot longer to produce, a lot longer to ship. And what that means is that instead of being able to sell the next month in 30 days, you might be selling in 90 days or 120, 150 days. And what that means is it's your cash is being locked up, and that prevents you from being able to scale faster. And of course, because of the competition, we're seeing lower margins. So all these are contributing to challenges with cash flow. And I'll dive really quickly into cash flow, because I think this is something that I feel would benefit people to understand if even it's just at the highest level. So what it's essentially the net difference of cash over time from your expenses, which is your purchasing inventory and your overhead and your marketing, and then the time it takes to get profits back from your sales. So that at a high level for our type of business in the e-commerce world is what cash flow is. And so what does poor cash flow look like? I'm sure a lot of you have talked to other sellers or you've seen this yourself in your own situation. Poor cash flow means that it's essentially you're not having enough money to pay for your next order or cover your overall marketing cost and your overhead. And that means that you're funded by debt or loans, because if you don't have enough cash or profit to pay, then you're not able to continue to run the business as usual, and you need to be able to you need to get the cash somehow. And what this means is also it's going to be back from every single order. And finally, it's very difficult, if almost impossible, to successfully launch new products and scale quickly and scale effectively if you're having a crunch on cash flow. And what does that look like on the opposite side? Well, everything the opposite to just what we discussed is what healthy cash flow looks like. So if we have a lot of cash on hand, we can run our business effectively. We can make sure we cover our next orders. We make sure that we're not going into debt. We're funding our products and start scaling these products very, very quickly. So it's important for me to point out right now one of the biggest misconceptions about cash flow, and this is that people believe that if you're profitable, you have strong cash flow. And this is not necessarily, I mean, it can be true, but it's often not true. And this is and doesn't consider the time it takes for us to recover the funds again from that we spent. So what that means is that it's possible, it's very, very possible for you to be profitable, but at the same time be cash flow negative as well. So I'll walk through a really quick example of what that looks like, just so you can internalize what that means for your own personal situation. So for example, if and let's say the profit is $5, just for the sake of the calculation to keep it simple. If you have that gives you about $1 million in sales for the year and 180K profit. Well, it's still possible that at the end of the year, even with your profit, that you are in debt. And what is the reason for this? Well, there's a handful of reasons, and I won't go through each of them individually, but the point is that what and we're not actually able to have physical money, which we call cash flow, in our bank account to continue operating the business, even if at the same time we are profitable on each unit sold. So this is one of the biggest challenges with cash flow, and this is one of the issues that we're going to talk about, how pre-orders can help us address this type of challenge. Number 5. Real brand. And I think a lot of this comes from confusion about what a real brand is. A lot of people, especially in the e-commerce world, believe, if you're an Amazon seller, we're told that a brand is about having a logo and, having some good photos and good packaging. Although those things are important, that is not necessarily all that goes into a brand. And for the purpose of we want to define as a brand, we're really looking at defining a brand as people who building an audience or building a community or building a list of people who really care about what you do. Apple wouldn't be a brand based on their logo alone or based on their packaging. Apple is a massive brand because people that are Apple customers are really, really fans of that company. So when it comes to being able to the biggest factors that are kind of working against us with this is, at least for us sellers, is not really understanding truly what it means to build a strong brand. So a lot of misinformation. And the biggest challenge here is not being able to build a customer list. So no list that allows us to be able to launch new products to communicate with. And this is mostly in part if most of us are Amazon sellers here, not being able to actually to have our
Hey,
business and not
Vance,
have.
Vance, sorry, you cut out for quite a bit. Can you go back to what you were saying? I think after like the Apple example, because you cut out on the previous slide with 5 difficulty. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
Can you
gotcha.
just yeah?
Yeah, thanks for that. Although those things are cool. What's really valuable about Apple, what they have assets in terms of how they're seen as a business, is that they have fans of customers that really support what they do as a business, and they want to buy their products. They want to share this with their friends, and that's what really makes a brand a real brand. How am I doing? How am I doing audio wise?
Cool, better. Yeah,
Cool.
better.
And so the biggest factors contributing against us building a real brand is just people not having the right information about understanding what a brand is, especially as Amazon sellers like we are. And also the biggest challenge with not having a customer list. And essentially customer list, what I mean by that is a list of customers that you can communicate with directly. And this is directly because of a limitation with the way that the Amazon platform works that prevents us from having a real relationship with our customers. So that's one of the biggest things holding us back from having a real brand. And number 6 is the difficulty in growing a diversified and sustainable business. So there's a lot of fear around this, and rightfully so. We hear about a lot of people just being able to one day just Amazon shutting down their accounts, not being able to sell anymore. They go from $1 million to nothing. This is really scary, and the reason that this is scary is because the business is not diversified and all of our eggs are in one basket. And of course, we don't want to be risking our business this way. So being able to build a brand that's diversified, just like if you're investing, you don't put all of your money into one stock, you diversify by investing in some stocks, maybe multiple stocks, or investing in bonds, or investing in currency, investing in whatever it is that you feel like creates a diversified portfolio. So this is exactly what we want to do with our businesses as well. But it's challenging because this can be often seen as difficult in terms of whether it's resources or time, and not having the right access to be able to do this. And so the factors against this are similar to before: not having a customer list, but seeing this as a really high investment of cost and effort to really build those foundations. And for a lot of us sellers, it's just easier to be selling on Amazon, and there's not really a clear path like Amazon provides us to be able to be effective at building this out and being diversified in other ways. So those are kind of the biggest challenges that we've identified. And in the surveys, a lot of you have pointed these out as your biggest challenges. So we're going to talk about specifically how pre-orders are going to allow us to be able to address some of these challenges. And I don't want the message to be from here that everything is, the world is terrible and we're not going to be able to be successful. I think the biggest thing here is we want to figure out how we can leverage something that will allow us to thrive even with these circumstances. And often in these situations where there's challenges, the more creative we are, and the more we're able to create something that's going to be exciting in terms of a strategy, allows us to be able to stand out. So the next goal for us is to take a look at how pre-orders can change the way that we think about launching. So first of all, I think the best way to start this is to understand what is the pre-order launch model. And so with crowdfunding, this is the model that we're going to be talking about. And what this looks like is essentially customers will be pre-ordering a product with the expectation of getting it later on. And what is this used for? Well, for us as sellers, this is allowing us to launch the product, which is going to be the first phase of this this strategy. It allows us to raise funds for a production order if that's a challenge for us. But if not, and that's not a huge issue, then the one of the most important things is it allows us to build an audience that's going to allow us to kind of make up for some of the things that we talked about earlier. So this is an example of a client that we worked with that launched essentially it's a private label notebook. It's really well branded. I'll talk about them later on as an example, but they raised about $50,000 in their launch. And this is the same company also that launched a private label, fountain pen ink, and they raised about $160,000. So these are really cool examples of products that are not super complex that took advantage of this model. So there's two main platforms, Kickstarter and Indiegogo. From now on, I'm just going to talk about Kickstarter, crowdfunding, and pre-orders. I'm just going to refer to it as Kickstarter just to keep this simple. But recognize that these are big platforms with a lot of credibility and a lot of users that people are going to these and seeing this as a legitimate platform for purchasing products. And one thing that's special about these customers is that there's some of the wealthiest e-commerce shoppers that are out there, because these people are paying for products that don't actually exist yet. Because the idea around crowdfunding, at least with how it initially started, was that these people are supporting projects and supporting products to help them bring that to life. So these are people that are willing to put down $50, sometimes in situations. I saw a product today that was a board game, a table, a couple $100 up. They're willing to put this down with a chance that they might never potentially receive the product. So these are really people with disposable income rather than people that are just shopping for the best deal. So for us to understand why this is going to be a favorable model for us, we need to understand, we need to compare this to the traditional model. So of course, we understand how the traditional model with Amazon works. We place the manufacturing order, we pay for it, we get the inventory, we invest in the launch strategy, and then we hope that we can begin ranking and start selling. So how does the Kickstarter launch model work, and how is it different? Well, this is a pre-order based model, as we've talked about already. And how this works is it allows us to launch a campaign that's a limited time. So for example, let's say 30 days. During this 30 days, these customers can place pre-orders. Once the campaign is over and we're successful, we get paid from Kickstarter within 15 days. After that, we place our order. And then from there, we fulfill to our customers. So our customers are called backers. And this is the best way that we have found that allows us to be able to build this relationship with them and be able to also benefit from this pre-order model. So this is an example that I pulled just today. This is a knife. Nothing really special about this knife. Of course, it's a beautiful looking knife and it's high quality materials. But these guys launched with just a really, in my opinion, a fairly average product, but they were able to within the first 40 days raise over 200,000 US, and there's still 6 days left to go in this campaign. So to understand why this is favorable, we'll compare this side by side. And we understand that obviously pre-orders is a little bit different in terms of flipping the order of which we pay for the order. And this is going to contribute to understanding the benefits throughout the rest of the ways we're going to understand pre-orders. So what is it that we need to launch? So we need two things to launch. The first thing is a prototype. So in this example, with the knife that's running right now, as a campaign that's launched, you need a prototype of that knife. So of course you need a physical product that shows that this is a real product, and that's how you get approved for a campaign to launch. And this, I couldn't cut out the entire campaign page, but the campaign page is essentially the page that's equivalent to your Amazon product listing page, where you need photo, copy, and videos, and that's what you need to be able to successfully to launch your campaign. And so it's important to note that these are assets that you need for a normal launch. So it's not something you do above and beyond what you normally do for an Amazon or Shopify launch. You'll need to do this anyways. What you don't need is you don't need inventory in stock. And this is where all the benefits come in from kind of flipping this model upside down. And we'll talk about why this is a better launch strategy that addresses the 6 concerns that we talked about earlier in terms of the ones that we had in your survey.
Vance, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Going back to the costs, like, for the Kickstarter model, isn't the video like a big investment? Can you speak more about that?
Yeah, we can talk more about this in detail later, but the video is definitely an investment. I think a lot of Amazon sellers and a lot of e-commerce sellers nowadays are investing in video anyways. The difference would be that the video for the Kickstarter campaign is going to be probably higher quality. We recommend that it's going to be a higher quality video than maybe some really basic video, but people are investing in video for ads now. They're investing in video just to do product demos and things like that. So yes, it's going to be an investment, but I think if you're seeing this as an investment in your brand, then that video can be used for social media. It can be used for your ads. It can be used for your platforms, your website, your PR, wherever it is on your website, all these types of things. It becomes an investment of an asset.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. So let's take a quick look at how the pre-orders will address the six factors that we talked about earlier. So the first one, too much competition. So with a traditional launch model, a lot of people are following very, very similar approaches, and this leaves a very little room for creativity and creating a competitive advantage because we're all kind of competing in the same landscape. So and the other biggest challenge is with a traditional Amazon launch model, and I say Amazon just because a lot of us here are Amazon sellers, but this can apply exactly to a Shopify launch, which requires inventory investment in advance. So the biggest challenge here is over relying on a single platform and not building a diversified business. So this increases risk. With our lab approach, the lab stands for Launch Accelerator Blueprint, and this is the approach that we use to launch our Kickstarter campaigns. Our goal is really to look at an alternative way of launching that allows us to minimize risk, improve cash flow, and at the end of the day, build a sustainable brand. So our goal really here is, we can't do much about having competition, but we can really try to do our best to think outside the box and get an edge over our competition while we work on building a sustainable business. So that's the first one. And the rest of them are going to be a little bit more concrete. Competition is something that we can't address head on in terms of there's competition, but all these other ones we can address in terms of the approach that we take with pre-order. So we're going to address the cost and risk of launching together because these are both related to the financial investment. So with the traditional Amazon launch, what we're looking at is a significant amount of investment and risk upfront. So this comes from things like the initial inventory. So I don't know about, obviously every category is different, but in certain launches with Amazon, I've invested in $30,000 to $50,000 in my initial order. So initial inventory that we need to for sure have in stock ready to sell. Things like PPC, things like different types of launch strategies that we're initiating. And at the end of the day, it's possible. Of course, we're hoping for the best and we're hoping that our launches are successful, but there's a chance that it may or may not be successful. With the lab Kickstarter launch approach, really, we're able to launch with just a prototype only, just like we said with the knife. We need a prototype with a knife. And of course, we're creating all the assets. But at the end of the day, the goal here is we're able to eliminate the risk by getting these pre-orders in advance before we have to spend even a single dollar on investing on inventory. So really what we're looking to do here is we're looking to flip the e-commerce model upside down. And in doing this, we're able to get those pre-orders, get the cash in advance, and eliminate risk. And this is a massive, massive benefit for a lot of sellers, regardless of how successful you are, especially if you want to validate a new product or concept or something like this, or you're doing something that's a little bit more different than the existing products. You're validating the product and getting the pre-orders is a massive, massive benefit to not have to risk that massive chunk of cash before going into the launch. Poor cash flow is related to this, of course, and the way that we often see launches on Amazon is that this is more of a sunk cost. And what we mean by that is that this is an investment, this is a cost, and we hope to eventually recover it when our product becomes successful. So if our product ranks, it's possible that we could be profitable, but it could actually take months and months and months to get the money back for recovering the initial costs. And so this model is very cash flow poor. And so with the approach for launching with Lab, what we see is that successful campaigns that are launched are profitable immediately as long as you've calculated your numbers in advance and they make sense. Because what we're doing is we're collecting the pre-orders, we're collecting the cash first, and then we have the positive cash flow immediately. That once we have this, we can decide, okay, well, we have extra cash. Do we reinvest this into the business? Do we buy extra inventory? Do we invest this into marketing initiatives? Do we create assets? It's going to be up to you at that point if you have a little bit more cash. So it's like you're almost getting ahead of the cash flow cycle by at least one round or 2 rounds, depending on whatever it is that you see your investment in inventory looking like. And at the end of the goal here is to really be profitable and cash flow positive at launch. And this allows us to really, really have a massive advantage compared to always kind of catching up with cash. And so those 2 things are related, number 2 and 3. And number 4, being able to have positive cash flow and minimize risk are really, really positive financial implications for us to be successful, and that the pre-orders address when it comes to our big challenges. So the next one is difficulty in building a real brand. So what does that look like? Well, in our traditional launch model, we know it's difficult to build a real brand based on our definition of building an audience, building a list, building a community of people that support us, because our buyers are not our buyers or our customers. they're actually Amazon's customers, which is why they make it so difficult for us to access the customers and get in touch. And that's why we have to do all these weird roundabout ways of trying to get people to opt in and insert cards and all that kind of stuff. But not having an actual list makes it really hard to grow a real brand, because it's extremely difficult to scale new products. It's extremely difficult to extend the lifetime value of a customer if they purchased once. So really, this caps the value and the potential of our business. So with our launch approach, the idea here is we're hoping, well, one thing is that once we acquire the customer, they become our customers, we can immediately get in touch with them. So here we're hoping to develop a relationship with them so we can engage with them. Me and Gary talk about this a lot, is developing your first 1,000 fans. And once you have these fans, these are people that are going to be supporting you to support your second product or your accessory or whatever it is that you're launching. Or if you're launching on Shopify and you're saying, hey, I'm going to launch on Shopify now, I'm going to give you a discount code for this amount. Will you support me? These are the people that are going to be excited to support you, because they not only know what you're doing, but they had this part in helping you launch your product. So this is a really cool way of getting them involved. This is just a quick example of my first 2 coffee campaigns that I launched. The first one was the Arctic cold brew system. So this is a cold brew coffee maker. And the reason why I bring up this example is that the second product that I launched was the Vance Lee coffee glasses. So these are coffee glasses that I launched, I think 2 years after the first launch of the Arctic. And about 5% of my customers from the first round came back to support this second product. And 5% is not a crazy big number. But what that led to about almost $40,000 of sales in the initial launch. So when I launched the second product, of the $200,000 that was originally raised, there's $40,000 that came from existing customers. So imagine not having to spend money and just being able to send out emails to your customers saying, hey, we're launching soon, and having a bunch of them support. So you're immediately cash flow positive in this example, which allowed us to hit our funding goal right away. So really our goal here is, the bottom line is, we're looking to build a list of ready to buy fans that support us. And this is what sets the foundation for the brand. So I'm not bashing getting a good logo and getting design work and good packaging, but really the essence of a real brand is to have those customers that support you and that are excited to hear from you and participate in your brand by engaging, by sharing, and by buying your products. And that's really what we're looking for. That's going to make a massive difference in scaling your business. And the final one, I won't go into too much detail about this one, but at the end of the day, if we're successful on Amazon, we generate sales on Amazon. But if we're able to be successful on launching through a pre-order launch model, it allows us to be able to build this kind of reputation. And what this does is it allows us to be able to create opportunities for diversifying our business. So I never wanted to get into wholesale distribution before this. I actually just wanted to kind of do my own thing and do e-commerce because it means I don't have to interact with people. But because of the successful campaigns that I launched with Vance Lee, a lot of people actually reached out to me. So these distributors in Korea, Saudi Arabia, even China. This is actually really kind of a crazy thing. We're selling a Chinese-made product back to China as an international brand, which is often not really done. But because of our ability to kind of create that credibility through our campaign that we launched, we have distributors in about 17 different countries that are buying our coffee cups, selling them to cafes in those countries, and now we have a completely different diversified revenue stream that's not on e-commerce alone. And I have a quick bonus one here. A lot of people talk about how difficult it is to establish a brand and presence, online presence. And one of the benefits of being able to run a successful campaign is that you pick up a lot of social buzz and credibility. So this allows you to have credibility to show different customers, press, or when people Google you or Google your product name or your brand, you're going to be able to have some extra, extra traffic and extra credibility there. So that's just a little bit of a bonus one for you. And I want to bring this all together by sharing an example of a campaign that we supported to launch. This is a company called Flyby Jing, and it started by a female Canadian entrepreneur who's a chef. And she is not an e-commerce entrepreneur. Unlike us, we're all studied, we'll understand what's happening. She had a product idea to launch this chili sauce, but no experience on how to do it. So she came to us, she said, hey, how can I launch this? And we suggested using crowdfunding and Kickstarter as a way to launch. And so what she did in her campaign was she was really successful. She raised $120,000, acquired a whole bunch of fans and a lot of PR, and this allowed her to kind of use the foundations for this to launch her company. And well, where is she at now? Well, she grew a crazy solid presence of over 101,000 followers last time I checked on Instagram, and she continued to build a lot of credibility everywhere throughout her online presence. And mind you that this is a hot sauce. So this is the stuff that shows up in the bottom store of a grocery shelf for like $1.50. But she was able to take this success from her campaign, and she really disrupted the industry. She's selling on Amazon right now. She does over 200K a month through her SKUs. I think right now, one of her biggest channels actually is wholesale. I'll talk about that in a second. But she has 120,000 organic visitors to her Shopify website every single month, and she was able to get into Costco, Target, and one of the most difficult ones, which is Whole Foods, which is insane. And she used this successful Kickstarter campaign as a way to get private funding from the right type of strategic investors. So a lot of interesting opportunities were created from this, and that just shows the power of being able to build a solid brand and build a solid community of people that support you. And as you can see back here, she really has done a great job with this. And obviously, this is this is just goes to show that she put a lot of effort into this, but it shows you what's possible from somebody who's selling something that seems to be commoditized, just like hot sauce that costs $1.50 in the in the grocery aisle all the way at the bottom. So how do we execute this? I want to do my best at kind of just giving you the overview on how to consider doing this execution. I'm going to walk through this as fast as I can because there's a lot to cover here, but you're going to get the overview as much as possible. So I developed this approach through a lot of failures, but essentially at the end of the day, I figured out the crowdfunding was the way that we can launch successfully and be able to take advantage of pre-orders to launch. And that's what led to the Launch Accelerator Blueprint, which we'll be talking about right now. So the first one is the most important one that I'll spend quite a bit of time on because this is about understanding how your product will stand out when it comes to launching it on Kickstarter as pre-orders. So the first thing is that you need to really have a hook, and this is what gets people to be interested in your product and have this kind of unique angle that makes them want to purchase the product and wait for the product. So this one is an example of a bed sheets. This is a very, very common category in Amazon. Over 120,000 raised by just kind of positioning this in kind of like a premium luxury way. And like I mentioned before, this works for all niches. We've worked with people in all sorts of categories, from apparel to stationery to food. And the framework that we use for this is what we call the edges framework. And this goes from level 1, which is easiest, all the way to level 3, which is hardest. And this determines kind of what we have to do when it comes to being able to have our product stand out. So edge 1 is the easiest. And what this is called product positioning. And this just changes the way that we present the product idea or concept. So this is one of my favorite examples. This is a glass that, because it's so simple, they emphasize this as the purest glass design that highlights the drink. Super, super interesting positioning. They've done a good job. They haven't done anything with the project. I've seen this product in many other places, even in some cases private labeling, but they raised 30,000 euros with this example. Here's another example of blackout curtains. These guys essentially took blackout curtains, which were very popular already, and they positioned this as portable blackout curtains. And this raised almost $300,000 on their launch on Kickstarter. Another one is another way of doing this is to position emphasize your benefits or features in a different way, or present your product to a new audience. And so this is a good example of presenting a product to a new audience, which is bed sheets for men. So I thought that was awesome. This is one I mentioned earlier with the notebooks, which is essentially positioning towards a creative audience for notebooks. Those both have done really, really well. This one is one that did 90,000 euros, and they took an existing product, which was the no shoe hiking socks, and they presented it towards women for after going out. And that's a really, really awesome example of positioning it to a different audience. I'll skip this one. It used to be one of my favorites, but I'll talk about that maybe another time. In this example, this is Edge 2, which is a little bit more difficult. So level 2 medium, there's Edge 2 and Edge 3. Edge 2 is changing the materials or changing the way something looks, but keeping the functionality the same. Edge 3 is functional upgrade. So here's an example of cutlery. Nothing super exciting when it comes to cutlery, but these guys turned it into titanium and raised over $3,000 with their launch. Here's another example of aesthetic design. So these guys just took yoga mats, put really beautiful designs on it, raised $190,000. on the launch by having some really cool looking mats. And this is a really cool example. Gary, you might recognize these as kind of like Chinese looking type of glasses, but these are mugs that are essentially just mugs. But what they did was they put really cool designs like pterodactyls and like zombies and a frog on it. And they raised 260,000 with this really cool kind of designed mug. And of course, you understand that like mugs are just no different. They've just done a cool job at creating something that's interesting to look at. This is an existing client of ours that launched a, this is an example of functional upgrade. They made a really cool pouch. They changed the material and they targeted this as a positioning towards outdoors. And they raised over $200,000 on this travel packing towel. And this is another example of turning, I like towels for some reason. This is a beach towel, beach sheets. Really, it's a beach towel. And they just made a bigger towel. So they kind of did a little bit of a functional upgrade here by making it larger, but they position this as a outdoor accessory for being on the beach, which is essentially just a big towel, $150,000 in the launch. And I won't go into this one because a lot of us aren't really here, but if you're looking at creating unique products or something that's a little bit more interesting or different, this wouldn't be usually your first product launch, but if you've had experience launching products and you want to do something different, this is an example of a travel backpack line that was launched by a big company called Peak Design. Advanced Functional Upgrade is doing something different and designing something completely different. I mean, this is a $5 million launch. It's a really, really big launch. I'm not expecting a lot of us to do this, but it's definitely potential for people that are designing new products. And here's another example of a product in the travel category that I like, a $9 million launch with this travel jacket that has a lot of interesting features in it. So those are examples of harder improvements to make that'll be an advanced functional upgrade. I'm going to breeze through these really quickly.
Just a quick time check. We have about 9 minutes left.
Okay, let me breeze through this really quickly. So what does it take to create your campaign? You need the assets that we talked about. So photo, video, copy. And here we want to focus on high quality, making sure that we invest in this because it's going to be valuable for our brand. And then for the campaign, we want to have the funding goal usually between 10 and 30,000 max and keep the duration between 30 and 45 days. Next is to build our audience. And without going into too much detail, we have two categories of audience members, and that's ideal future customers and influencers. And the biggest question to ask is, where do these people hang out? And how can we connect with them in the way that's going to be easiest? And this is going to be something that allows us to be able to bring credibility and traffic to our campaigns. And once we finally launch, these are going to be the people that help us out when it comes to our success of the campaign. When it comes to launching, we want to make sure that we hit our goal within the first 24 to 48 hours to spike the Kickstarter algorithm. And that's really what we're looking to accomplish. Take advantage of PR. So if you're doing well here with your campaign, you want to be able to get PR as much as possible. It's optional, but it's going to help you drive additional traffic. And of course, use your community, because once you already start acquiring customers, you can immediately contact them and ask them for help to sharing the campaign. And that's going to make a massive difference in the success of the campaign. And after the campaign is over, of course, you want to place your order. You get the cash within 15 days. You can continue selling on the second platform that I talked about, which is Indiegogo. And generally, you can sell about 20 to 100% more. And of course, you want to fulfill your promise to your backers. And finally, the last step, this is the most important thing. This is where we start establishing our brand. And the end of the campaign is not the end of our relationship with them. Our goal here is to really maximize the content that we can get from our customers, to engage them and ask them for product ideas. This is where you start establishing a real brand and a real connection with your audience. And that's how we get product ideas. That's how we get 2 to 5 Instagram posts organically every single day. This is one of the most important parts, is to be able to take advantage of this process so that you can start building your brand, so that you can expand to other channels and to grow this in different ways with new products. And so I'll just quickly dash through these case studies. Here's an example of one of a few of the examples that I showed earlier. This company, Ferris Wheel Press, launched and did 3 campaigns, raised over 400K and 3,000 fans. And now they're selling lots of different places: online retail, third-party retail, physical retail, and they've built a pretty successful brand with lots of followers. Now they're one of the leaders in the space of stationery. They launched less than 3 years ago, and now they're one of the most successful stationery brands in this category. Better Back, another example. These guys have just launched a back brace and back support tools, raised a lot of money. They went on Shark Tank. Now they're selling in the Amazon website, everywhere else, and they're selling on TV as well. And a smaller campaign, 40 grand raised. These people we know really well. Health beauty category, super competitive, 800 backers. But what they did was they took this success and scaled it into right now at least 600,000 a month business on Amazon, off Amazon. Now they have 25 team members. So that's it. Could we talk quickly about the bonuses and jump into Q&A, Gary?
Yes, let's talk about the bonuses.
Okay, cool. So if you guys made it this far, we want to offer you the first bonus, which is 100% free. It's the launch hacker resources. So these are going to be a few guides that you get for just being able to support you in your product launch, your pre-order launch type of approach. So if you're curious about this, we're gonna put up the link in a second, but this is what you get access to as a part of the free training. The second bonus is a free launch strategy session. And so if you are interested in exploring pre-orders and you want to find out if your product or your niche or your idea can take advantage of this model, we're offering 5 free sessions for anyone from Gary's audience. And essentially to find out if the Kickstarter is going to be a fit. To qualify, you must be launching within 8 months, and it needs to be a consumer product. So not a B2B product, not an app or anything like that. And if it's not a fit, we'll let you know. If it is a fit, you have an opportunity to join our lab masterclass case study program. And the case study program is essentially where we're looking for a few people to join our program to create successful case studies. And we're going to take you from idea to launch and to essentially aim to sell 30 to 50K in pre-orders while building that foundation for your brands. And so that's it. To access that, you'll go to livemyplayground.com. And there's just 2 buttons there. So if you get the hacker resources, you'll get those. If you apply for the strategy session, you'll also get automatically get the launch hacker resources as well. So livemyplayground.com.
Excellent. I just dropped the link in the chat so you can grab your free bonus, the launch hacker resources, and get a chance to apply for the free strategy session. So we just have a few minutes left, guys. So any questions, feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself. I think this is a great opportunity to ask one of the leading experts in crowdfunding about pre-orders, how you can turn this whole model upside down. So, and don't be shy, guys. This is like super valuable to get this FaceTime with Vance. Vance, let's try to let's turn on your video. Yeah,
I'm still here. I'm still a human being
here. Still here. Yes. So, I think one of the coolest things, I loved all the case studies that you shared. One of the coolest things that I noticed, and this is kind of like the trend that kind of popped up in the back of my mind as you were talking, is many of these products are just like Me Too products. I mean, like a glass or like a cup, and even the back brace, that was one of my first private label products back in like 2017, 2016. And I recognized that brand, Better Back. They were one of the sellers, but like I didn't know they had this whole like Kickstarter, 1,000 like raving fans behind them. So I mean, they're still here today. I long exited that private label business once it got saturated years ago. So I think that's one of the edges that you can get if you are able to, get all your pre-orders and with the audience. So just an observation, as you were going through that, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunities to take something. Of course, improving it is really important if you can find a way to improve it, but really positioning it and building an audience around something that you get excited about is going to be really cool to have an opportunity to build a business and brand around like a category of products that you're interested in. So a lot of people are using crowdfunding for this type of thing.
Yeah, okay. So any questions, feel free to drop in the chat or just raise your hand. I think something else that was interesting to me is when you said about launching the traditional Amazon model versus Kickstarter crowdfunding. It seems that it's actually 2 launches, right? It's like you're going to launch on the crowdfunding campaign first, and then once you get all of those initial sales on the pre-orders, then you launch on Amazon as like a second step. Is that right?
Yeah, so the pre-order crowdfunding, exactly right. So the pre-order crowdfunding launch is not it's not the be all end all. This is only a first step that allows you to build momentum, get some cash, improve your cash flow, and also build up an audience. And then after that, you can say launch to Amazon, launch on Shopify, launch to retail, if that makes sense for you. There's a lot of opportunities that come from doing this, but it just limits your risk for the first portion of it when you just need to get the product going and you need to get your first inventory order and just to get this going rather than having to order $30,000 to $50,000 of inventory, whatever it is that you're looking to need to launch your first initial batch. So it's one of those things that doesn't have it's a net win because you're not at a disadvantage by doing this way. You're creating all the assets that you're going to need later anyway, so you can immediately move over to Shopify or Amazon after you've launched. So here is this, like, it's one of those things that it just makes a lot of sense because you're able to take advantage of minimizing the risk, and the stuff that you're creating is going to be useful immediately after for any other platform that you choose to launch on.
Okay. I'm going to ask a two-part question because I'm just reviewing all of the questions from our registrations for the last question. So, number one is talking about the cost. What are the costs involved? Minimum budget, etc. And second part is talking about like private equity, like venture capital funding. I saw one of the, I think it was Flyby Jing. They got that in round 2. So can you talk about that to wrap up? A two-part question.
Yeah, so the cost really is going to depend on a lot of factors. And if anybody has specific questions about this, they can feel free to reach out are going to be very similar to your Amazon launch. It's going to be prototyping, samples, all the stuff to do product development. The second chunk of cost is going to be things like creative assets, so photo, video, copy, whatever it takes to get that. Generally, it's going to be probably a little bit higher than your Amazon because you're going to be investing in higher quality and you're going to be putting a little bit more money than that. So those two components are the same, with creative assets a little bit more expensive. And then the final part of it is going to be investment in ads. That's going to be depending on a lot of factors, but in general, ad money only needs to be spent if it's going to be successful. So if you're spending money on ads and it's performing well, you can pump more money into it. If it's not performing well, you can scale it down and and depending on your category, depending on the niche, depending on the price point, there's going to be a lot of things that influence the actual cost. But yeah, any specific questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me at Vance at Live My Playground. I'm happy to answer specific questions about if you're at that stage and you're considering launching and what does that look like.
What is your contact again?
Vance at Live My Playground.
Sorry, you're cutting out. Vance at livemyplayground.com. Is that right?
And so your second question was about private equity.
Yes. So sorry, again, your email address, can you just put it in the chat so people can follow up? Vance at livemyplayground.com.
Myplayground.com. Oops, I think I sent it to you directly.
It's okay. I put it in,
you got
in
it.
the chat. Okay, so the second part, someone else pre-submitted this question. Can you get angel or venture capital funding in round 2 after you use this strategy?
For sure, yeah. This is what a lot of people use this strategy and go to Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, and they say, essentially, okay, I didn't launch yet. Of that, they use this as a negotiation card for their next round of funding. So this becomes a really, really good strategy because you're essentially saying, hey, I got $300,000 of orders before I even launched. My company is now worth this much, and if you want to buy into this, this is what it's worth now. So it's actually a really, really awesome strategy to have rather than coming with this an idea that has a lot of people interested way before we even launched, and this is how much we've sold with no marketing or whatever it might be.
All right, excellent. Thanks so much, Vance. Really value-packed training today, talking about pre-launch, pre-order, launch strategy. I think a lot of people are just overlooking this, and you're turning the model upside down, right? You're getting the cash first before having to commit to buying inventory. So definitely, guys, if you are interested in learning more, grab the free resources, the Launch Hacker resources at livemyplayground.com. And then also you get a chance to apply for a free strategy session. And if you want to work more with Vance, Vance also has a program where he personally, in a group setting, they help guide sellers to execute this. So definitely check that out. All right. So anything else before we run, guys? Any other questions, or Vance, any other last comments before we run? We're good.
No, other than just yeah, as we're going through building our businesses, let's try to think outside the box, be creative, and I think the future of e-commerce is building our brands and building audiences.
All right. Vance, you're cutting out
Up on
again.
this
So
now, you're right.
yes.
I think I'll just wrap it up
Okay.
with let's keep up the good energy and let's build some awesome brands.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right. Thanks so much, Vance, for the excellent trainings today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we will see you guys at the next session. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.